History is broken. All recorded knowledge more than 300 years old has been corrupted. The Starfinder Society is recruiting outsiders to unravel the mysteries of what happened. Unlikely heroes must learn to work together to stay alive, where technology and magic exist together among the stars. Dead Sundays, most Sundays at 7 p.m. Only on twitch.tv/Logar the Ogar. The past haunts us all.
All right. Oh, I hit the wrong fucking button.
Oh,
there we go. Nailed it. Nailed it. Hi. Hello. Hello, everybody.
Boy.
Welcome to Dead Sundays. Dead Sundays is the show where we play Starfinder on a Sunday. It looks a little different around here.
Just a little.
Just a little.
I like it.
Part of season 2 was making a couple more of these thingies. We'll be using this particular screen next season for when we're just kind of doing more theater of the mind, talking what stuff like we're going to be doing today. And then this one will be used for more when we have to do lots of rolls and doing Roll20 things and tactical combat and yada, yada, yada. So today we're going to talk about everybody's favorite part of the Dead Sons adventure path, which was Temple of the 12.
It was especially Zib's favorite.
So,
Fuck this book.
Zib, before we start, I want you to give a once-over of everything that happened in the book. Very quickly, in 20 seconds or less, describe Zib Beveridge's experience in Temple of the 12.
I defrauded a whole university and then spent 2 real-world months being sick.
Yeah.
And then was punched in the face by an angel. And I'm still here, baby. You can't stop the Zip train.
Not technically an angel, however, pretty close.
Solarian.
A Solarian is basically an angel. Actually, I'm gonna get some.
It's my favorite space TV show, Touched by a Solarian. People bursting into flames.
So this stream won't be too super long because we're just gonna talk through everything that we did in Temple of the 12. We're also going to try to flesh out what was happening with Clara when she was going through her transformation from being a NPC to a PC. The Temple of the I should say incident at Absalom Station ended with you guys leaving the Drift Rock in a brand new spaceship called the Space Wave Maiden, along with your Shepherd bot and your foe-turned-pilot NPC, Clara 247. You guys went all the way back to Absalom Station. When you got back, you were greeted by a big crowd of people who was very excited to see all of you guys because you were the heroes of this quarantined ghost ship Drift Rock fiasco that was happening between 2 rival factions, the Hardscrabble Collective and Astral Extractions. So when you guys got back, you had solved this huge problem, and everybody was very excited, and they came to meet you, and everybody got to do, kiss a baby, take a picture, all that fun stuff. Shortly thereafter,
because I got like a mandible thing.
Well, you do you click over top of the baby.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. It's that motion. Everybody understands. Yeah.
It's like a European greeting. It's just like click on one cheek, click on the second cheek.
Exactly. Yeah. Click. Yeah. After pretty quickly after that, because Clara was technically a criminal, you guys decided to let Clara go park the car and then hire her as your pilot once you were going to leave the station. While you were there unloading, you took the box that you guys found that definitely didn't have anything in it.
Oh, you mean
and
the thing that, or mattress? Yeah, it was just a box we put a mattress on top.
It was
of.
just a box that you put a mattress on top of, and nobody was going to look inside of it, and nothing was going to go wrong, and nothing happened in the cargo bay of the Acreon.
That's right.
Yeah. And the fact that the mattress wasn't on the floor shows how adult we are.
Exactly.
The
It was
box is
the
a bed
closest
frame, really.
It was the closest to a box spring you were going to get. After you returned the box with the person still in it to the appropriate person, who was Gravel Askanor, the Yaxian ambassador, the planet of the undead, you guys made a choice. And the choice was, I asked you, do you want to tell anybody about this? And you said no. I said, okay.
Not my business.
You returned the box, and you were thanked for your discretion, and you took your findings from the Acreon and the Drift Rock to Chiskisk at the Lorespire Complex, the home of the Starfire Society in Absalom Station. Because Raj had the foresight to download a copy of the runes and language that were on the terminal in the strange back rooms of the asteroid that you guys were in, you were able to show these to Chiskisk, who ran them through a couple of their databases and found that the only matching language or rune script that they could find was from someone named Hakuim, someone, a real piece of shit.
Dickhead
Queen Zam or something like that.
It was Hakuim Zan. Hakuim Zan, who was a explorer. If anything, he was more of a colonizer. He went to a place and was like, "Oh man, look at all this old stuff. They must have been so primitive." Wrote a bunch of books about it. Constantly tried to circumvent the laws of the protected land that he was trying to explore, and was generally all around detested by the people that he interacted with. So this led you from Absalom Station, which is the hub of government, commerce, and social structure in the Pack Worlds, to Castrovel, which is the jungle planet that is the ancestral home of the elves, and also the home of the Lashunta and the Formians. The Lashunta and the Formians were at war for years. The elves were off on their own little continent, doing their own little thing, and they didn't really talk to anybody, and they did not come up at all in the adventure. You guys decided that in order to get from Absalom Station, you were going to have to ride your little spaceship. But unfortunately, you had an open slot as far as a crew member. The way Starship combat works is each person has a job, and you did not have a pilot. So you decided that you were going to pay Clara to pilot your ship for you.
The only pilot you knew.
The only pilot you knew, who was Clara. You also decided to take Jin Durseer with you. You knew that Jin was no longer involved with Absalom Police. Jin had helped you out when you came back, and you decided to hire a security officer to watch the ship while you guys weren't on it and exploring Castrovel, which was good that you guys did that, because what happened was, after you guys did what you were supposed to do, you ended up being in the jungle for 2 weeks. You flew to Castrovel, and as you came out of Drift and entered the atmosphere, you saw the planet for what it was. It was a giant green marble that had these spots of technologically advanced societies popping out of them. Most of the planet was untamed and wild, but it was meant to be that way, and it was kept that way specifically so that they could further their research in these advanced technological cities while the rest of the planet remained in its natural state so that they could study it. One area in particular that was like this was the Ukalam Peninsula, which was off to the northeast in a continent that was basically unsettled. When you guys arrived at Castrovel, the first thing you had to do was you had to find someone who could read this ancient language that none of you guys and nobody at the Starfinder Society or on Absalom Station could tell you about. So the only thing that you could do was search for a xenoarchaeologist who specialized in ancient languages. You got to Kabarit University, which was the university that you were told you were going to find a xenoarchaeologist that could specialize in languages to translate these for you. When you got there, you met up with Dr. Muhali, who was
guy, right?
What's that?
No.
The giant floating brain guy?
Not yet.
That's
Not
Albane.
yet.
Was
Okay.
it Albine 21-2 or something?
Something. That's actually exactly it. Great job.
Good note taking.
Professor Muhali was the person that you were supposed to meet up with. You were supposed to explore these ancient languages with her, and she was going to refer you to a doctor that she worked with named Dr. Solstarny, who was an expert in the Castrovelian lost languages. However, once you guys got to Kabarit University, you realized that there was something happening. There was another doctor who, in a scathing speech from the night before, had alluded to the idea that maybe all the genocides weren't that bad, and had kind of said something along the lines of, well, if it invoked progress, then could it have been that bad? Obviously, everybody that had heard that speech,
Everyone disliked that.
everyone disliked that. No one is surprised. So when you got to Kabarit University, you were out front, and there was this mob of people trying to get their mob of reporters trying to get an answer out of someone from the university about what was going on. You guys went around those people, because that's none of your business, and tried to talk to the receptionist. But unfortunately, in talking to the receptionist told you that the only way that she could get you upstairs, or the only way that he could get you upstairs to talk to Dr. Muhali, was if you got the people out of the receptionist area. So, a brilliant plan was formed. Zib took their hollow belt, made a disguise to look like
College.
someone from the college, and managed to roll a diplomacy check so high that there was nothing. The speech that Zib gave as this member of the university who was not a member of the university was so poignant, and it said everything that you need to say after there's a tragedy. That they are looking into it, that they are deeply affected, that they are exploring options, that they are sad and confused just like you, and that their thoughts and prayers, or yada yada yada, go out to the people that are affected.
I see you.
We hear you.
You're
We are
valid.
listening.
Excuse me, everyone. If you would come this way, I can answer any and all questions you have. If you would just please stop harassing my coworker at the desk, please. Thank you.
Do you have a statement to make about the controversial statements that were made last night during the speech of Dr. Alabian's 21-2 concerning the Forbian and Lashunta wars?
I currently do not have a statement on the comments on behalf of the university, but I think that I, as an individual, can agree with all of you that there were controversial statements made, certainly. And if you would like to walk with me, please, I would answer your questions further over outside. I need air.
Are there any plans to remove the tentative tenureship of Dr. Alabian's 21-2 over the statements made about the Formian and Lashunta wars last night?
We have, as an organization, have not come to a conclusion on the tenure of the doctor, and we will be reconvening this evening to discuss the matters further, but as of this time, I have no further information on the doctor or the events. I hope this has been very enlightening for all of you. I've unfortunately run out of time, and I jump into Pax's arms.
And I back through the door, close it, and then put the stick that's actually a sword through the handles.
I let you roll a diplomacy check for that. When the question was, should I make you roll a bluff check or a diplomacy check? I made you roll a diplomacy check because you didn't actually lie. There were no lies. The only thing that you rolled for
lied.
There was not a single lie told. I let you do the little
listening.
speech first because they were listening. They just didn't happen to be involved with it at all. I made you roll for the disguise. You passed the disguise check. I had you do your speech. I decided then that it wasn't going to be a bluff check because it was originally should have been to pretend. I don't remember how the book wanted you to solve that particular problem. I think maybe you could have strong-armed or just left and came back later, but you did a really good job. It was a great plan, and it worked out, so you guys nailed it.
Hell yeah.
So then the crowd was gone. So then you got to go upstairs and meet Dr. Muhali. But then, because of the way game mechanics work, you had to run into another problem. So when you got in to see Dr. Muhali was going to introduce you to Dr. Solstarny to explain to you all the intricacies of this lost language. Except that she couldn't actually do that. Because one, she didn't know where Dr. Solstarny was, and two, she couldn't go find her because another doctor had given a scathing speech the night before and now needed to be convinced that they had to retract their remarks to save face. I believe part of the issue here was that Brain Shapiro was had tenure at the college, so they couldn't outright fire him. He was a big brain attached to a little body, and he gave this speech that involved him saying some horrible things. But for whatever reason, no one could convince him that he was wrong. They could not fire him, so they were in kind of a pickle. Muhali's day was going terribly because she could not get anything done because the only thing that anybody had wanted to talk about all day, people had been calling her, emailing her, coming into her office about this fucking guy. So being Starfinders, you decided that you were going to
Get involved with other people's shit.
get involved with other people's business. Do you remember how you managed to get Alabian's 21-2 to admit that he had been offensive?
I believe we threatened him with violence and
You
said
threatened him with physical violence.
Yeah,
You taught
diplomacy
him.
check.
You taught Paxdoro taught Brain Shapiro a very valuable lesson in that sometimes when you say things, you can get punched in the face.
So your message is that it was okay for one side to genocide the other?
Basically, yes.
So what you're saying is that violence is an answer to a problem if you get your way. Now, I hope
Yes.
you don't mind, but you should probably apologize.
and Pax stands up.
Make an intimidate check.
24.
Pretty good fucking intimidate check.
Woo!
Why? Why would I apologize? Why? I've done nothing wrong. All I did was make everybody upset or saying the truth.
It must be nice to be able to speak your truth. It would be a shame if that was taken from you.
I see your point. Apologizing will perhaps discredit what I have said and will therefore hurt me in the long run. But perhaps your logic and reason is alternatively truthful.
I love alternative facts.
Yeah.
So, sometimes the truth is just written by the strongest person in the room.
You guys met one more character. Very important to help you out with this investigation. Space Columbo decided to come and do an investigation alongside of you guys. Any information that you guys missed while inspecting the office yourselves was filled in or suggested by Dr. Space Columbo. Who's not a doctor. Regular Space Columbo. Mr. Space Columbo. The obvious method was to go back through the security cameras and find out when the last time Dr. Silsarni had been seen was, and you guys saw two people dressed like they were from the Port Authority come into Dr. Silsarni's office and then leave with a bag that was full, that looked like it could have been full of a person. So your only lead was these two people dressed as members of the Port Authority. The Port Authority wasn't necessarily the dock workers that worked to facilitate the landing and takeoff of spaceship. The Port Authority was very literally the group of people that managed the portals on Castrovel, the Ayudara, the Elf Gates, the portals that connected several different places in Castrovel to each other. There was a big ring of portals, much like a terminal in an airport, and all of them went to different places. But because people couldn't just come in and out of them willy-nilly and run into each other, there had to be some kind of authority and port authority to run them. So that was who you guys were going to investigate.
How many times did I say raw dog Port Authority style in this episode?
I don't think any.
Oh, interesting.
That's it. That is interesting that it took this long to bring it up.
Oh, well. I'll get him next time.
While next year. Yeah. While you guys, after you guys solved the problem at the college, you had a little bit of time because you had to go to the Port Authority the next day. You had time to explore Castrovel. And what you did was you went to the battle yards. I asked you guys if you had anything you wanted to do on Castrovel, and Ryan immediately said, we should go see the battle yards, and we were live, and I was like, yeah, dude, let's do it. Let me just Google that real quick, and all it said was, the battle yards? Oh, they're there, baby. And that was it. There was no description of what they were. It was so I decided that our version of the battle yards was going to be a very large Six Flags-like theme and amusement park. Actually, probably more like the Ren Fair, where they're constantly doing demonstrations and there's workshops, but then there's also lots of very showy martial arts, combat training, hand-to-hand combat weapon training, all of these things. It's kind of like a college and also a big event. So you guys went, you checked it out. There were many arguments about why you didn't want to pay to get in.
This became a theme event later.
It became, and then eventually you said that you wanted to fight a bunch of people. You had completely misunderstood the point of the battle yards, but you met an old, grizzled Lashunta captain who came out before you guys were allowed to come in and agreed with you that you guys would get entry if you could help him put on a self-defense show later in the day. Pax, using his profession as a self-defense teacher, decided that this is the perfect opportunity to get a good fight in. The two of you wrestled. You did a lot of very mixed martial arts, judo throwing things. I'm just saying buzzwords. I don't fucking know.
Took a crossbody at one point.
Wrist lock.
Yes, you guys locked up, and one of you did a tombstone. Eventually, at the end of the fight, you were rolling self-defense against each other, and then we were narratively describing what was happening at the end of the fight. Pax eventually let the guy just put him over, or Pax put the guy over by letting the Lashunta commander win against a Vesk in a wrestling match.
Yeah, of course.
And
gotta help him build up his hype.
Yeah, everybody tell me how you let him pin you.
So if I'm up like this, I'm just gonna wait a second longer than I have to while he just goes for like a single leg takedown, totally throws me down, puts me in like some sort of a submission hold on my foot, and I lose my mind. Pax just loses his mind trying to tap out.
Yeah, perfection, absolute perfection.
Wild histrionic waves with my arms and jumping up and down around them.
The crowd absolutely loses their mind, and in a very Final Fantasy IX situation, they're all going to throw credits at you. I'm going to roll 5d100, and that's how many credits. Between of all the people in the crowd, they all throw 333 credits at you. You guys went through the portal to Terhalu Point. You met up with a bunch of people that had told you about a group of Lashunta that were taking a young-looking Kasatha through the jungle into the wilderness. Obviously, those were the people that you're looking for. You were less concerned with rescuing the doctor as you were with figuring out what this language was and what it meant and why it was on the inside of an asteroid that seemed to be built into a bigger piece of something else.
Mm-hmm.
But that was your only lead. So your only choice was to walk through the jungle. Because of the work that you did to patch up what was going on at the university, you were given access to Hakuim Zan's original field notes. And those original field notes allowed you to make orienteering and survival checks to find your way through the forest. You were going to find several key points of interest that were going to lead you to a structure where the first recorded images of that language that nobody understood were taken. That started your 2-week trek through the wilderness.
Wasn't the other thing Raj's clever solution to the suit power? So we are environment.
There was
suits?
right. So
yeah.
So part of you guys walking through the jungle was that you had to have your environmental protections on because it was so hot that you needed to have some kind of air conditioning system, which all of you guys did because you had armor. All armor comes with environmental protections. It has a number of hours equal to a number of days of environmental protection equal to the level of the armor, which is not a big deal if you can recharge it. If you can go back every day and recharge your armor after your adventure, which you could not. However, Horatio had a walking generator equipped to his backpack. So we calculated how much you would actually be using, how much you could generate, and how much you could switch with you could switch an infinite amount with your cantrip of taking charges from one battery to another battery. As well as I think you found 1 or 2 batteries while you were out that were used for for laser guns and things that you could have transferred the charge.
That's right. Yeah.
So I did all the math, and I realized that with this amount of walking and with this amount of using the environmental protections, you guys didn't have to worry about it at all.
Oh.
Every day, you guys would have to wake up
And almost die.
and almost die and orienteer yourself through the jungle according to your own abilities and the cross-referencing of the notes on in Hakuim Zan's field notes. You had two options. You could either survival check to try to follow the tracks of the mercenaries that you were chasing, or you could orienteer yourself and look at the sky and the stars and the sun and be like, okay, we got to go that way because the sun's over there and that thing's over there and this is here and that's the way we got to go. Depending on how well you did, determined how long it took you to cross the amount of distance that you had to travel. So if you rolled a high orienteering score, you got to go 12 miles. If you rolled a high survival score, you got to go 9 miles. If you failed, you only went 6 miles. And if you failed over and over again, what that meant was it would take longer and longer for you to reach the destination. But basically, you were always making progress to where you had to go. While you were walking through the jungle, the first thing that happened to you was you ran into a herd of Yariks.
I don't remember those guys. Yeah.
They were big brontosaurus-looking ass things. You guys met a herd of Yasaric a herd of Yarick that were crossing in front of you. You attempted to make a couple distractions to get them to stop long enough for you to cross their path. You tried to create the sound of a crying baby Yarick, which distracted them long enough for you to sneak past this opening in their walking herd so that you wouldn't disturb them. Unfortunately, as soon as you got past them and into the tree line, a sniper shot rang out, striking one of the Yarick, and then they turned to stampede onto you.
Yeah, that sucked.
Sorry, what did Pax think they were called?
Pax knew that they were called Thrashodorathops, and the real reason that they rampage is they were trying to feed off of Zib's inert telepathic abilities.
Makes
Right.
sense. And what is the encyclopedia that Pax references?
That is the young adult series Mind Wars, which is very famous on Castrovel.
And
not famous enough for anyone we met to know.
I think there was a point where you asked somebody about it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that kids book, that young adult novel series." And Pax is like, "Yes."
I feel like there was
Exactly
a couple good running bits where it was we would meet people and then we'd be like, "Hi, I'm Zib Beveridge. Do you know me?" And they'd be like, "No." And then we'd be like, "Do you know this popular young adult series?" And they're like, "Also no." You people are fucking weird. Leave me alone.
You ran from the Yarick and eventually ran across a stone bridge that once you got to the other side, the Yarick attempted to chase you. The bridge was not built well enough to sustain the weight of 5 to 10 rampaging brontosauri creature and crumbled, and the stampeding Yarick fell into the valley below. But none of them died. They got hurt, but they didn't die.
They were all fine.
They were all fine. Made full recoveries. Because it was not your fault, so I wasn't going to do that to you. Around this time, Clara was back on the ship with Ginger Sear.
Just doing ship things.
Just doing ship things. Cleaning up.
They're never gonna betray the other people on the ship.
Nope.
They made a pact.
Football.
The ship was where Clara and Jin spent all of their time. Because they were not paid to be adventurers. They were paid to be they were paid to be NPCs that weren't going to go into a fight. The way that the book detailed how to pay for the services of something was it's a certain number of something multiplied by their skill in the thing. It determines how much you want to pay them, and if they have to go into danger to do it, it quadruples. So you guys were just paying Clara by the day, Clara and Jin by the day, to be on your spaceship.
If anything, by making her a player character, I did y'all a favor.
Yeah,
True.
you reduce the overall costs of.
I reduced your overhead, baby. I cut it in half.
Of the Space Wave Maiden.
And then we cut the other half ourselves. So.
So while Clara is on the ship, very slowly over the course of the several days that you guys were traveling through the jungle.
Trounced by the jungle, you're correct.
That sounds right.
When you were getting your ass beat in the jungle, when you were absolutely getting your cheeks clapped by the trees of Castroville.
Not just by trees, just by a lack of being able to survive in the wilderness at all.
There should have been some, as far as adventure design goes, there should have been something in the beginning of this book that was like, hey, these things are going to happen in the jungle, so it might be worth it to have the players do a nature check to be like, oh, we should bring poison antidotes or something. You guys didn't bring
repellent.
anything.
Store in the jungle to buy stuff that we need.
Right. Because then once you're in the middle of the fucking jungle, you can't just teleport, Amazon drone delivery fucking anti-disease medication to the middle of the jungle. It's also a no-fly zone. So
The
you
jungle
couldn't
didn't even have
call.
Wi-Fi.
There was no Wi-Fi in the jungle.
How many blocks large was that jungle, for Christ's sakes? Felt like we were walking forever.
It was, you had to go 112 miles
Jeez.
walking with all of your gear.
And you could go, at most 12 miles a day, you said?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was a trip.
Sucks.
And that was
It
only if we
sucked.
that's only if we passed our survival checks too.
And then the lowest you could go was 6.
Three city boys just going into the forest. Dumb.
After you got across the bridge, I'm sorry, Clara was on the ship with Jin.
I was.
And over several days after the crew had left, started to get more and more intensive headaches for no discernible reason. To the point where eventually, for probably towards the second half of the last week, Clara was almost debilitated by these. So that starts right around this time. As you guys cross the bridge that dropped all the dinosaurs, you came to a clearing and saw a group of small creatures that are, for copyright reasons, different than the ones I'm showing you right now. But they were remarkably similar. You guys follow these little forest spirits to a broken stone archway, and on the broken stone archway was a symbol that looked like this.
I hope it's just a picture of a Totoro.
Legally distinct from anything you had ever seen before.
And one has a big backpack and he needs to get back to his friend.
He needs to get back to his friend. You better build that cart, baby. Not he. The door. No, I'm sorry. The broken archway led to another place. Once you attempted to use the archway as a door, it turned into a bright white light that you could not see the other side of, and you walked through it. When you walked through it, you were greeted by a person that looked like this. This was the hostess, as she called herself, and she invited you to sit at her restaurant that was empty. The hostess offered you items in exchange for a favor. The favor that you guys repaid her with was going on the dating show to rescue one of her friends who was named Bill, who was legally distinct from Phil from Hercules. It was very important that we added that.
This is my original character. Do not steal.
Do not.
So that was the first time that you met the hostess. She offered you magical items in exchange for a favor, and because you guys made the very smart decision to not question that at all, you went through with it and received a reward in kind. After that adventure was done, you exited the restaurant and were back in the jungle.
Yeah, she couldn't like drop you off or
No.
assist you with that in any way.
Right back to where you started. Continuing through the jungle meant meeting a variety of new creatures. One of them being a monkey-looking ass thing.
All of them were mean.
All of them were mean. You came to a clearing, and a group of monkeys known as Kokorikis
No.
threw fruit at you, fucking with you enough to make you engage in a fight, and then leading you to another fight with a giant nasty plant creature called a Vrasina.
This friggin' guy.
So,
This friggin' guy.
but of course, once Pax Doro saw the Kokorikis, Pax Doro recognized them as what?
God, I don't remember that one. That
Pax
one was
Doro looked
bad.
at the slightly primate-looking thing above him and said, "Those are monkatops."
That's it. Everything was a top.
Monkatops.
The monkatops threw fruit at you to annoy you and managed to get you to chase them. And as they ran away, you guys got closer to them, and eventually you were faced with a creature that seemed to be entirely made out of plant matter. It was called the Vrasina, and it tricked you by dangling its bright flowers in front of you to put you in a trance to get you to walk close to it. This happened to Horatio. Horatio got tricked by the pretty flower and walked right into the Vrasina that was wrapped around a giant stone obelisk.
Sure did.
You guys managed to defeat it. And because he is the way that he is, Pax cut off the purple flowers that were dangling from its scorpion-like tail and made them into a flower boa, which he wears proudly to this day.
Oh yeah, brother.
Upon inspecting the obelisk, you realize that this was one of the first landmarks that you were supposed to meet on your way to the dig site that you were trying to get to. After continuing your journey, you again met a pair of disgusting creatures known as Kasariks. You were walking through the jungle probably the next day, and you started to hear screaming and yelling coming from the forest in front of you. Once you got to a clearing, you saw a person laying on the ground screaming in pain, begging for someone to put her out of her misery. You realize that she was yelling to the Devourer, which was a god that was the manifestation of entropy and destruction in the universe, which was your first clue that something not so great was also happening at the same time while you guys were in this jungle. But before you could handle that, you had to fight this thing. And this thing was disgusting. It had these giant tentacles that came out of its face that were made entirely of plant matter. But also, much more dangerously, it had a stinger tail that it could shoot darts at. And when it shot the darts at you, they would go inside of you as spores and germinate inside your body. And eventually, over the course of the next couple days, you would grow small Kasarik seedlings inside of your body, causing you immense pain and debilitating you until you were laying on the ground with nothing that could help you, and they would burst forth from your skin, and new Kasarik would populate the jungle.
Wasn't Jim hit with that?
The
We were all hit
trypophobia
with this.
disease.
Several times.
I cast my rolls, if I remember right. Like, for some
I was
reason,
the only one who didn't.
Yeah.
Zib and Pax were affected by this Kasaric spore-spreading disease. Throughout the next couple days in the jungle, you found more and more sites that were related to the ancient people that were mentioned in Halkoim Zan's notes. You found yourself at the feet of a gigantic stargazing elf. The structure was clearly used by a group of people to look at and catalog the stars. While you were there, you fought people known as cultists of the Devourer, and also a couple of Kasaric once again. Actually, it looked like this. Let me show you this. There you go. That's what it looked like.
This friggin' fight.
Yeah, defeat.
It was a great fight.
Several things happened here. As on your approach the day before, you were forced to fight several days before you got there, from going from the Kasaric to this Stargazer, you were caught in a mold storm, which was super fun. At the end of the mold storm, you were faced with a rampaging Rencroda, which was a dinosaur-looking lizard thing that had gone crazy because it had ingested so many of the spores that it was enraged. You guys put that down. You made camp for the night. You woke up the next day. On your way to checking out the Stargazer, you fought an invisible aberration, amoeba-like looking thing from the sky called a kingfisher. It's called a skyfisher.
Yeah, and I did the cool grenade thing. That was a great fight.
One of the rewards from the hostess's side mission was you were given a grenade that had a cool S on it, and she gave it to you saying, use this when you need another pair of hands. And when you threw it, it was a summoning grenade that summoned a baby Skittermander. I forget exactly the series of events, but somehow you got the Skittermander latched onto the Skyfisher in the sky, and then you threw an incendiary grenade to it, and then it stuffed the grenade in its mouth and jumped off while the Skyfisher exploded. Skyfisher exploded, and the celestial Skittermander faded away and returned to his natural state. He didn't die. The connection was set.
Definitely didn't die.
Definitely did not die. Didn't even take any damage. Had a great time. Loved every minute of it. Super helpful.
Yeah, he just showed up to help, went back home, and was like, yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I don't know. Fuck it. I'm gonna give him a grenade.
Okay.
And he's gonna jump and explode.
Yeah, what grenade do you give him?
For the sake of... I guess an incendiary?
Okay.
I got two of those.
So you hand this Skittermander, one of your grenades, and it's about as big as it is, but it has 6 arms, so it can kind of just hug it and hold on to it. And it winks at you and gives you a thumbs up, and you are allowed to throw it if you want. You throw it at the Skyfisher. The Skittermander is going to make an attempt to grab onto the Skyfisher. So the kinetic ACs of the Skyfisher is 18, but because it's a combined attack, I'm going to say that a 17 is close enough, and that if the Skittermander hits a certain athletics check, it will be able to hold on to the Skyfisher. And I'm just going to say that it's a 10.
Sure.
Okay. So here's what happens. You give the Skittermander this incendiary grenade. It smiles and winks and chirps at you. You throw it, and it lands right next to its beak in proximity and grabs onto like this fleshy, gross aberration skin. And then it shoves the incendiary grenade in its mouth.
There goes my hero!
And in a beautiful, explosive event, it deals critical grenade damage because it hits it inside of it. The Skittermander is unfortunately unsummoned at that point. But
that would make sense.
I like to think it just lands on the ground and does like the little belly dance that the gopher in Caddyshack does.
Sure,
in the
yeah.
movie.
I'm all right.
Yeah, so it shoves a grenade in its mouth and falls from the sky. Does a cute little dance, but since it took enough damage, it just wisps away calmly. The intention of me giving you those grenades with the cool S on it was to summon Skittermanders, but I guess I didn't expect you to use them in combat. I don't know why I expected you to like know what they were. Like, because they're perfect for like, oh yeah, I need to go do this over there, but I also need to be here. So I'll summon a Skittermander. But without telling you that that's what it did, it couldn't come to fruition like that. So you use them in the second best way possible, which was to make it stuff a grenade. Yeah.
Well, I have a couple more of them, so or at least one more Skittermander grenade.
So after you beat the Skyfisher, you went and investigated the Stargazer. The Stargazer was a structure used by the ancient people that had lived here on the peninsula for cataloging the stars. While you were in there, you found a bunch of new information about what these people thought, and most importantly, you found a description of 12 stars in a ring in the sky. And as far as you could tell, this was not a place that you could see now or that existed. Shepard checked some of his star charts. A lot of it didn't add up, so it was very confusing, but you didn't really have anything to go on, so you continued through the jungle. You made camp every once in a while, and as you did, you tried to get Zib healthy again, but it seemed that every time Zib had to make a fortitude save to overcome this disease, they just got worse. The person that you had rescued from the Kasark the first time, you had just sort of let them go through the full stages of the disease and take the damage of the sporelings burrowing out of her body.
Yeah,
so you knew. Was that?
I remember. Like we couldn't even attempt to save her.
There was nothing you could do.
Yeah.
So I just had her take the damage, and she survived and agreed to help you. As she did, she explained to you about the cult of the Devourer, the cultists that you were going to be fighting, and the people who took Dr. Solstarny. You also sort of convinced her that since she decided that since her group had abandoned her, she was now going to get revenge on them by killing them back. So she helped you find your way through the jungle and keep tabs on the cultists that you were following that clearly had possession of Dr. Solstarny. Eventually, after many days of being sick and traveling, you got closer to what you knew was the place that the cultists were taking Dr. Solstarny. As you got closer, back on the ship, Clara was experiencing her headaches more intensely than ever, and as she did, she was also experiencing visions of the crew traveling through the jungle.
Sorry you had to see that. It's like mostly me throwing up, I think. That's
It was many visions of fighting and getting lost and getting attacked by creatures, Zib throwing up constantly, Raj staring at the feet of the Stargazer, Pax trying to fight everything that he saw, and over again throughout the day, you would receive visions of what your crew was doing when you weren't there. And then one day...
dying from your nostrils and how incompetent everyone.
How did these three beat me?
This is why the payrolls were late.
Eventually, one day, Clara was making her way to the lavatory to throw up from the migraines. And as she did, she braced herself on the side of the ship and she touched a symbol that she didn't know was there, and it shined a blue glow and turned itself into a shimmering white light of a door. She walked through and found herself in a dimly lit, sparsely attended restaurant. She was greeted by the hostess, and the hostess explained to her that what was happening was she was experiencing many different timelines at the same time. The hostess gave Clara a magical item in exchange for letting the hostess view the visions that Clara was having. Basically, the hostess just kind of like tapped Clara on the head where she was having the most pain and gave her this magic item. And because of that, the headaches and pain subsided immediately and were condensed into one point in Clara's head. That's the only way that she could describe it. And after that, suddenly, Clara had this temporal vision that she could use alongside her previous mercenary operative abilities. We talked about this in the last catch-up episode. When we were making Clara a PC, we had to make the decision of what are we going to do with these skill points.
We had to nerf her.
Like, we have to nerf part of Clara because the math doesn't add up for a singular PC to go from a CR2 to a level 3 creature or
Right.
level 5 or whatever we were doing. So we decided that the flavor was that this kind of coalescing of timelines that Clara could see manifested itself in a couple levels of the precog caster class and rearranged some of Clara's skills in her brain. And that was the only way that she was going to get out of this debilitating migraine vision situation. Now she has the magic item called the Diadem of Desna, and whenever she's hit with a magic attack, whenever she's hit with an attack of opportunity, I think she can activate it and gain a concealment bonus to maybe have the attack miss. The item the item isn't necessary for Clara to keep wearing to control and condense the timelines, but it was part of the hostess doing this for her. And then the hostess handed Clara a advanced med pack and pointed to the door and said, "You need to go help the people. You need to go help the rest of your crewmates in the
They're
journey.
really not doing that great.
They are in trouble."
They are struggling.
I packed lunches for them. Can you?
Here's a lunch pail. Using back in the forest, using Raquali's help, who was the devourer cultist that you guys had met in the middle of the forest, the crew made their way through the remainder of the forest, separating them from what was going to be called the Temple of the 12. On approach, you saw that up the stairs, many of the traps had been sprung. Clearly someone had laid these traps to try to get them out, or try to keep people out, but the cultists had just sent their people up it to trigger the traps and use them up so that whoever was leading them didn't have to do it themselves. At the top of the stairs, there was a mountain eel that you guys fought. It was a gigantic, disgusting green eel. You guys did quite well, considering that you were throwing up the whole time. And then you
I think
got...
Axe and Horatio did well that fight.
Yeah, but like as a team.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Overall. And then as you guys got to the front of structure that you were going to, you met a elf. Clearly standing in front of you was an elf. But through a mysticism check, Horatio realized that it was an undead elf Solarian. And as you guys stood there and tried to talk to each other, you couldn't. The only thing that was able to be communicated was that this person's name was Penelier, and they were guarding the front door of this temple, and they were not going to let you in.
I was trying to be cool. That guy was there.
Everybody was trying to be cool, and it was uncoolable. So eventually, you guys fought. You noticed that while you fought, Penelier only stayed in this area. They refused to go outside of these pillars. And eventually, you guys defeated him. The temple itself was also laden with traps, but as you explored it, you found a room over here that, after a little bit of investigation, you realized was lined completely with dynamite and explosives. Clearly, someone was going to eventually try to blow this structure up. You opened the door and you saw 3 more Devourer cultists inside, 2 of which were under the command of a third who had a machine gun that tried to mow you guys down and somehow missed entirely. I think we made the joke that she was right in front of Pax and she fired the gun and none of the bullets hit him, so it just made the outline of Pax in the wooden door and then fell forward. Unfortunately, one of them threw an electricity grenade through the door, and the book said if there is any electric stimulation to these explosive charges, they would go off, and they did. And the roof caved down on top of you, but because they were not set up properly, and it was in the middle of it was in the middle of setting them up, it didn't collapse the structure entirely, and it just made the room difficult terrain, and everybody in it was concealed from the dust. You guys defeated these 3 people. After that, Shepard said, I gotta go. And then walked through one of the doors in the temple. And then immediately after that, Clara 247, who had previously been on your spaceship for 2 weeks, walked back out of the door and handed you an advanced med kit so that Zib could fix themselves.
It was like, what's up, fuckers? And we're like, oh,
Pretty
thank
much.
God.
Pretty much, yeah. Thank God someone with a real brain showed up. Very shortly after this fight with the explosion, you met up with Dr. Solstarny, who explained to you that she had been kidnapped by someone named Tahomin, who was the leader of the Devourer cultists. Tahomin had managed to trick the door guard into letting him in and explore the area down here, which was a library containing all of the information that these people before had collected. You guys spent the night in the library. You took a full 24-hour big rest to get as much rest as you could, while you also explored the library in front of you. Before you could do that, though, you had to convince those 2 lore guardians that you were elves. So Zib, again, took the holographic belt, strapped it to Solstarny, made her look like an elf, and she said, hi, I'm an elf, you're going to let me in? And they said yes. I didn't realize how often you use that.
It's great. It's a cool thing to do. I don't know why I stopped. Probably because we're mostly getting eaten by monsters these days.
Yeah.
This temple was used by ancient elves who lived on Ukalam and would study the stars. And they noticed that at some point they started to study a certain region of space. And when they studied this certain region of space, they started to receive information back from space. There was someone who was communicating with them as they studied this particular point in the cosmos. It ended up being a god whose name was Ibra. Ibra made connection with these ancient elves while they were studying the sky. And at some point also, they discovered a region of space that had a very strange constellation in it, which was 12 stars in a circle, and the temple that you were in became known as the Temple of 12 Suns. They studied this region of space, and through the tutelage of Ibra, eventually they decided that they were going to, and then it gets kind of wishy-washy, transcend where they were and go into the cosmos to be received by Ibra. What that actually meant What's that?
I said, hell yeah.
What that actually meant was confusing because there's no way that they had discovered spaceflight by then. They were mystics and scholars who were familiar with magic and obviously with documenting the stars, but not with anything technologically advanced enough to get them to space.
They're
So
just
you
gonna
spend-
astral project.
So it is sort of like alluded that they were going to astral project and then but then also permanently be there. It was not clear what they were doing, but they were leaving and they were going to go join Ibra at this spot. You spend the whole night with Dr. Solstarny, who is translating the text that you're reading to you guys and cross-referencing them with all of the information that you had gotten up to this point as far as the things that you had downloaded from the Drift Rock. The things that you had downloaded from the Drift Rock, you were able to read them now, but they only said things like temporary emergency power, activate auxiliary systems, a bunch of things that wouldn't make sense in the context of discovering this extremely old pre-spaceflight civilization.
Right.
So you and Solstarny spent the night talking as much as you could about what could possibly be going on. And the next morning, you left, and as you left, you came into the courtyard, and down from the mountain came the leader of the Devourer cult in this sector of space, whose name was Tahoman. Tahoman was a real piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
You're too late! It looks like everything that I did to stop you from getting here worked perfect. And now, somewhere out there is some sect of the Devourer's cult that is going to find this super weapon and blow everything up. And you can't do shit about it. You guys suck.
Yeah.
Must
I don't
be
suck.
Sir,
He's
that-
stuck. I pull my gun and shoot him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sir, you're hurting my feelings. I'm gonna pull out my energy pulse caster rifle.
Clara says yeah, and he puts his hands on his hips and he's like, well, I didn't expect that. It's not fun if you lean into it. And he's kicking the dirt now, and he's like, oh, I just had this whole speech that I was going to do.
What?
I mean, there's no reason to put other people down just because you've succeeded.
I think there is when the whole when my win condition is blowing up the universe and finally getting rid of all this bullshit while you four fucking idiots fail up a flight of stairs over and over again.
Look, it might be fair to make fun of Clara as she has been fairly worthless this entire time, but the three of us have done quite a bit to halt you, and while it is good that you feel these positive feelings, they will be the last things you feel.
Oh, nice recovery.
Immediately ridiculed you for being as stupid as you are. Did not understand how you guys made it as far as you did, but nonetheless was very pleased that he was going to be the one to finally get rid of you.
Hey, if it makes him feel any better, we didn't know how we got there either.
It doesn't make him feel anything anymore because he's fucking dead.
So the four of you, the newly formed
What?
away team of the Space Wave Maiden, Pax, Horatio, Zib, and Clara, did a glorious battle with Tahoman and two of his cultist devourer lackeys, destroying all three of them and taking possession of a rather large device that they had hoofed up and back down the mountain. The device was a long-range transmitter. It was capable of sending a message from Castrovel to a different planet. which is a thing that currently you guys could not do because you would need access to a transmitter that was bigger than your comm units. You would need to use a ship. You couldn't have used the ship. It was a no-fly zone. So they had this communications equipment, and when you inspected it, the communications equipment didn't have much information, but it did have the destination that the message had been sent to. It had been sent to an asteroid in the diaspora, which was the asteroid belt that was home to many strange creatures, as well as mining operations and space pirates, and anybody who didn't want to be found. So with this information, you discovered that there was something that Tahoman was looking for. And whatever Tahoman was looking for, it seemed that he found it and sent that information to a Devourer cultist cell in the diaspora. There was talk about the illusion of a super weapon. And once you relayed that information to Dr. Solstarny and Chiskisk, it became very clear that you were the only people in any position to track down where that message went and follow up on what the cultists of the Devourer were doing, looking for a super weapon of epic proportions. Because if the cult of the Devourer got a galactic scale super weapon, they would use it to destroy every single thing in the galaxy. Because that's kind of their whole thing.
Yeah, like when you build a super weapon, that's what you typically intend to use it for. So
right. I forget exactly where and how you guys discovered this information, but it all became clear once you were spending the night. When you spent the night with Dr. Solstarny in the library. You guys stayed up all night.
I'll spoon with him. Just you know.
Yeah, all five of you spooned in the library.
Strictly platonic. We just enjoyed each other's.
Yeah, it was
company.
cold. Yeah, no. And during that time, you learned about the Gate of the 12 Suns, which led to something. Some said it was a super weapon. Some said it was great power. You learned about the ancient elven people, and you learned that the Cult of the Devourer had also learned this information and had sent it off to a seemingly random asteroid hidden within the diaspora. Upon achieving that, you had defeated all of the encounters and learned all of the lore dumps that you could in Book 2 of Dead Suns. You had gone to the titular Temple of the 12 and learned as much as you could, and it seemed that your only next option was to either give up on the thing entirely and go be a real piece of shit, or follow up on it and maybe try to save the galaxy. Tough choice. In response and in reward to your help with locating Dr. Solstarny, you were awarded a choice. You could have either a bunch of credits, or you could have one night school course. Ziv and Horatio chose night school. Pax and Clara chose the money. All of you.
Now, to be clear, the money was a research grant.
The money, that's actually a very good point. The money was a research grant from the college to continue researching whatever connection this had to the ancient elves that lived in the Temple of the 12th.
Yep.
And those funds were spent correctly.
Wisely,
yeah. And I researched some bullets. Yeah. So you gotta have bullets if you're gonna go research.
Yep.
You were also awarded money from the Starfinder Society for doing a good job. You were also awarded money from Albion's 21-2, the Brain Shapiro, who said the off-color remarks at a speech. He decided that he had done some deep reflection on what Pax had said to him and what he had said and the reaction of the community to what he had said. And he realized that the four of you might have actually had a hand in saving his career as a lecturer. So
I'm just guy thinking of what Pax said to him and like skipping all the poignant stuff that Pax said to him and just, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you.
It's basically exactly what happened. And he decided that he was going to take his extra money from his lecturing tour and donate it to the crew of the Space Wave Maiden, which you guys took happily because fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
And that's where book 2 ended for us. You guys went up to level 5. You had gained a permanent new crew member as well as a cast member on the show, who was Clara, who was Beck, and you were preparing to blast off from Castrovel to go to this random rock in the diaspora. And that's the end of Temple of the 12.
Yeah.
Yay! Nice.
You've been waiting the whole time.
The finger has been hovering. Great job, everybody. So that is going to be the end of our catch-up episode today. Viewers, thank you for viewing. Players, thank you for playing. We played today, right?
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
That was so well timed.
If it wasn't against me, I would be upset. I'm sorry, because it was against me, I don't like it. Any other time would have been great. Capitalism's bad unless I'm making money, baby. So, players, thank you for playing. Viewers, thank you for viewing us. Paizo, thank you for making Pathfinder and Starfinder. OBS, thank you for making your program. Stereoscape, thank you for providing us sounds, even though we didn't use them today. We use them in all of our videos. All right, so now is the time when we look at the camera and say goodbye. Everybody look at the camera and wave and say goodbye.
Bye.
When you're coming from the black, you want a place that reminds you of home. You want traditional foods like our Eoxians cadaver digits, fresh fried, every cycle, or tacos made the Spathany way, flavored with real asteroid sauce. With quality finding up with a syndicate, but at prices any corporate collar can afford. So after you dock, head over to the Eye. We're open all cycle, every cycle, ready to treat you like family, hive mind, or brood clutch. Spacies, you're gonna like the food you eat from the restaurant that I own.